The young girl's earliest clear memory is of her mother sitting quietly on the front porch in a sun chair, dozing behind oversized sunglasses while the soft hum of a radio plays nearby. Clutching her pink dinosaur plush, she imagines her mother frozen in time, never moving again. Yet each time the pang of loneliness creeps in, her mother stirs from her sleep to soothe her. This fleeting comfort marks the start of her turbulent childhood, shaped by the separation of her parents and the shifting tides of family she barely understands. I don't have many memories of living with both my parents. The earliest one I can recall is of my mother sitting on the front porch in a sun chair, listening to the radio, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses as she dozed off. I was beside her, quietly playing with my pink dinosaur plush toy. Sometimes I would look up and see her so still, as if frozen by the sun. I even imagined she might never move again, that she would remain there forever and leave me without a playmate. Yet the moment that little sadness tugged at my heart, she would stir from her sleep and comfort me. She was right there. Everything was okay, at least for the time being. I don't remember the details of their separation or the reasons behind it. I was too young. My mother was moving away, and they decided I would stay with my father. There was no shouting or dramatic scene, just 4 large suitcases loaded into a red Toyota, a kiss on my cheek, and a wave goodbye. It felt as normal as if she were just going to the store. Though too young to fully grasp what was happening, I knew I was supposed to feel sad, and I could feel it inside me. My mother wanted to stay in touch, but live across the country. She sent postcards and presents, but I rarely saw her. My father eventually met a new woman who became almost like a mother to me, even if she never held a title. Sometimes life takes these unexpected turns, but things are rarely that simple, as I learned when I turned 12 and my father passed away suddenly. They pulled me out of school to tell me, and it felt like I was falling into a nightmare, questioning everything around me. Every sensation seemed surreal, as though I were trapped in a dream I couldn't wake from. I simply couldn't fathom what was happening. When my father died in a tragic accident, everything in my life shifted suddenly and irrevocably. I was only 12, and the news came so abruptly that it felt like plunging into a nightmare. Pulled out of school to hear the devastating news, I found myself questioning the reality of it all. Was this a dream I could wake from? But it wasn't. His absence was real, crushing every certainty I had. After his passing, my stepmother fought fiercely to gain custody of me. However, since the adoption process had never been finalized, there was no legal claim to make. As the next biological relative, my mother, who lived across the country, was contacted. Everyone expected her to decline, but to their surprise, she agreed to take me in. Within days, I was uprooted from Wyoming and sent to Florida, a place that was unfamiliar in every sense. The transition was abrupt and disorienting. Though I'd been told that I was loved and wanted, the reality of boxing of my life and moving so far away was daunting. Adjusting to this new reality was more complicated than I could have imagined. The first days at Eileen's house were filled with a strange blend of discomfort and cautious optimism. When I arrived near Crystal River, the first thing that caught my eye was a sun chair on the porch. Not the same one my mother had cherished years ago, but similar enough to stir faint memories. Alongside it sat a small table, holding a battery-powered radio and an ashtray. I hadn't recalled her as a smoker, but then I barely remembered her at all. Eileen came rushing out to greet me, arms open wide, her eyes hidden behind sunglasses. She didn't resemble the mother I had once known. To me, she was just Eileen, the stranger I was to call Mom. Despite this, she swept me up in a hug, kissed me softly, and wept, murmuring, "It's all going to be okay, baby girl. It's all going to be okay." The house itself was older than the one I left behind. 2 stories with wood paneling that looked ready to fall with a gust of wind. It was neat and tidy, but carried hints of mildew in certain corners. The walls bore many pictures, mostly of Eileen herself, but also a few of my father and me. No other man appeared in these frames, just what seemed like old friends. Eileen was eager to promise fun times ahead, swimming with manatees, visits around town. She showed me my room, chatting nervously about everything and nothing, attempting to mask unease with enthusiasm. I sensed she noticed my discomfort, but whether I would ever truly feel at home was uncertain. Those initial days blurred together. My room had a comfortable bed, and with Eileen's help, I hung up my posters and connected my laptop to the slow, unreliable Wi-Fi. The neighborhood was lively yet not modern, and the coastal location played tricks on our signal strength. Eileen introduced me to the locals and tried to make me feel welcome. She inquired about school subjects and music tastes. We went to movies, hung out at parks, and swam, but it all fell hollow, more like a performance than genuine connection. School was a challenge too. New classmates, new dynamics. I found myself both admired and ignored, a paradox of being the newcomer. Each day was a delicate social balancing act, and when I finally returned home, exhausted from dodging jealous peers, the house should have been my sanctuary. On that particular day, music played as I danced across my room. Suddenly, a framed photo of Eileen and me from years ago fell from the wall, crashing to the floor, glass remaining intact. Startled, I hung it back up, blaming the old house's quirks. But the picture fell again, this time without any movement on my part. Upon closer inspection, the nail holding the frame seemed to creep outward before the photo tumbled for a third time, shattering glass at last. Strange occurrences like this made me wary, though I told myself it was nothing, just the house settling. With Eileen's help, I switched the nail for a screw, and for a brief moment, the unsettling incidents appeared to cease. Yet, these small disruptions marked the beginning of my deeper awakening to the mysteries lurking within that old house, and to the fragile thread connecting Eileen and me as we both sought a new normal. After about a month of living with Eileen, I began to notice odd things happening throughout the house. One day, I came home exhausted from school, looking forward to some music and relaxation, when a picture on the wall suddenly fell, a framed photo of my mom and me from years ago. The glass remained intact, but it startled me enough to pause what I was doing. I carefully rehung it, thinking maybe it was just an unstable nail or the creaks of an old house. But then the picture fell again, this time without any movement on my part. As I examined it closely, I saw the nail being pushed out from the wall before the photo crashed to the floor again. This time the glass shattered. I couldn't explain it. I considered mold or drafts, but none of the other pictures around the house reacted similarly. Eileen helped by replacing the nail with a screw. That seemed to do the trick, but this strange incident made me pay closer attention to the house. There was a peculiar sound coming from the basement, a pitter-patter behind the dryer that I assumed might be rats, but it felt too neat, and Eileen never mentioned rodents. Even more unsettling was the pantry, a small, closet-like space where she stored baking supplies. Sometimes when I opened its door for a quick snack, I would hear noises, closing doors, taps on the walls, the rustling of paper bags. Once, a bag of flour flew off the shelf. At times, I could even hear something moving inside, like heavy objects being dragged along hollow wood. When I brought this up to Eileen over dinner, she laughed off the idea of rats, but I could tell she didn't believe me at first. Still, she checked the pantry multiple times, but never found anything. Yet, she kept listening, standing still in the kitchen, shushing me if I came too close. Her fascination grew into an obsession. She called an exterminator, but when nothing resolved, she started breaking through the wooden panels in the pantry, convinced something was living behind the walls, some secret burrow or hidden creature. She tore the pantry apart completely, items strewn across the kitchen table, leaving us no place to eat, pushing me to dine in my room. The noise and destruction escalated. Power tools roared through the house as she ripped up floors and walls in other parts. Searching relentlessly, pictures tumbled off walls more frequently. Was it the house settling or Eileen's unraveling? Neither of us could tell anymore. One afternoon, Wearing safety goggles, her eyes wide with determination, she insisted on showing me what she had found behind the pantry walls. A hollow space about 2 feet wide. She was certain something was hiding there, but it wasn't rats. Her frustration mounted, and her fervor shifted from mere annoyance to desperation. Eileen's grip on reality grew tenuous as she continuously tore apart the home, convinced she must uncover whatever dwelled in the shadows. Meanwhile, I stayed mostly in my room, confused and wary, watching as she spiraled further into this strange battle against unseen forces. After a while, Eileen's focus on the strange noises in the house transformed from a mere curiosity into a full-blown obsession. She began fixating on the mysterious sounds, convinced that something was lurking within the walls or beneath the floors. Her determination sparked increasingly destructive behavior as she started tearing apart the pantry, breaking through wood panels, and splintering walls in search of cause. Despite finding no obvious signs of infestation or damage, Eileen refused to stop. Her frustration mounted with each failed attempt, and she resorted to calling exterminators but dismissed their findings. She was convinced the house was hiding secrets beyond pests. The constant noise and her growing obsession made living there tense and uneasy. Eileen's restless, almost frantic energy led her to dismantle parts of the house little by little, scouring every nook in a desperate attempt to discover and eliminate whatever presence unsettled her. The house shook with the power tools and crashing debris as she tore through walls and floors, leaving behind chaos and confusion. Even when she found a nest of cane toads lurking near an old pipe in a basement and managed to clear them out, the unsettling noises and unexplained happenings didn't cease. Instead, her fixation only deepened. She meticulously patched holes, reassembled shelves, and began reinforcing the house. Her compulsive need to fix what she saw as a creeping menace took over daily life, straining the relationship and filling the home with tension and suspicion. Eileen was determined to confront whatever haunted the house and reclaim control, no matter what it took. I sensed the tension rising between Eileen and me as the days passed, each silence growing heavier than the last. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, she suddenly placed her hand firmly on my phone, her eyes locked onto mine, demanding an explanation. "What are you doing with that?" she asked, her voice low but edged with suspicion. I hesitated, then lied, just trying to get used to the place. But she wasn't convinced. "There's more to it," she pressed. "I've seen the pictures you take. I know you move the paintings." A spark ignited in her eyes, the same fiery intensity she had when tearing apart the pantry weeks before. "No point hiding the truth now. It's not me moving them," I admitted, showing her the before and after photos. "Something else is." The room fell silent. Suddenly, her demeanor shifted. No longer the calm woman trying to build a life, but someone on the edge of panic. She stood abruptly, locked all the doors, grabbed her toolbox, and declared, "We're not leaving this house until we've dealt with this." Panic was setting in, but I suggested calling for help. She snapped at me, snatching the phone and tossing it into the narrow space between the walls inside the pantry. "This is serious," she said fiercely, "and we have to handle it ourselves." Her obsession had spiraled beyond reason. In the days that followed, Eileen's behavior grew erratic. She prowled the house at odd hours, wielding power tools as weapons against unseen foes. My bedroom door was locked, isolating me while she battled shadows only she could see. Her earlier warmth faded into something colder, more desperate. One morning, I found her removing an outlet cover with a screwdriver. I accidentally dropped my phone, and when she picked it up, her gaze pierced me. "Are you toying with me?" she demanded. "No," I stammered. "It was just there." Her face twisted with anger. "I'm your mother," she growled. "Don't lie to me." I confronted her directly, asking questions she struggled to answer about my birthplace, my middle name, memories that didn't align. The cracks in her facade began to show. When I tried to leave, she blocked the door, wielding the screwdriver like a weapon. Panic surged through me as she dragged me down into the basement, locking the door behind us. Trapped in the cold, dim space, I listened to her frenzied torment upstairs, furniture smashing, tools hammering, and her wild cries demanding answers from the silence. She wasn't just fighting shadows anymore. She was fighting something or someone inside herself. The night, I realized this was no longer a mother and daughter battling adjustment and grief. It was two strangers caught in an invisible war, each questioning who the other truly was. As days unfolded in that old house, I began to notice strange inconsistencies that gnawed at my mind. One evening, as I sifted through some old boxes in the basement, hoping to find a distraction from Eileen's relentless renovations and unsettling behavior, I stumbled upon a collection of bills, letters, and birthday cards, all addressed to Eileen. At first, these seemed to be just ordinary tokens of a lived-in life, reminders that this woman had a history in this very house. But then I found something that chilled me to the bone, a custom-printed farewell card signed by Fran from a few years ago. Their smiling faces seemed familiar, yet one figure in the middle wasn't Eileen. As I examined the photo, I realized this was someone else entirely, the stranger who resembled my mother only in shadow, but clearly was not her. The woman named Laura, not Eileen, held the camera, laughing as if she belonged in this place. It dawned on me slowly yet horrifyingly. This wasn't my mother. This was a woman who had stepped into a life that wasn't hers, taking my mother's place and weaving herself into my story. With a mixture of dread and disbelief, I realized that the woman upstairs, the one who had welcomed me and claimed to be my mother, might be concealing the darkest of secrets. She had pictures, mail, and a presence that felt real, but these tokens now felt like masks covering a truth I wasn't ready to face. My heart pounded as the reality sank in. I was living with a stranger, a woman who had usurped my life and identity. The unease that had been building inside me coalesced into a stark, terrifying certainty. I held my breath, knowing that confronting this truth would unravel everything I'd hoped was stable and safe. And yet, it was the first step toward understanding the shadow that had enveloped my home. I had barely settled into the uneasy rhythm of life in Eileen's old house when the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally boiled over. What began as strange noises and objects moving on their own had evolved into a terrifying conflict. Eileen's obsession had grown beyond mere frustration. She was now a different person altogether, wielding a gun with a desperate determination to protect what she claimed was her home and me. The day of the showdown started like any other, but the atmosphere felt charged, heavy with unspoken fears. When I returned from school, I found Eileen waiting for me in the hallway, her eyes wild behind thick safety goggles, a power tool clenched tightly in her hands. She was breathless, on edge, and told me she had found it. Something hidden in the walls that wasn't rats, not the harmless pest we initially suspected, but something far more sinister. Despite my pleas to call for help, or at least stop, she refused. She insisted that we confront whatever was haunting the house ourselves. Eileen's determination was unsettling. The line between reality and obsession blurred as she tore apart the pantry, walls, and floors in frantic searches for a presence only she seemed to perceive. The house shook with the sound of her power tools, and once steady pictures again began to fall, a silent echo of her unraveling mind. Then came a night when it all spiraled out of control. Eileen began pacing like a wild animal, clutching her gun, her face pale and contorted with fear. She forbade me from leaving, convinced that they would take me if I stepped outside. Every creak and shadow seemed to feed her paranoia. The once mundane house felt more like a prison. My own sense of unease grew until I could no longer dismiss the strange occurrences. Pictures were not only falling but shifting, straightening themselves while no one was around, cans arranged neatly in the pantry. Was it Eileen or something else? The question haunted me. One morning I found my phone, a cracked, dusty relic I thought lost, on the nightstand. Eileen was busy dismantling an outlet in the hallway when it slipped from my grasp. Her reaction was explosive and frightening. She accused me of lying and deceiving her, and when I confronted her about the inconsistencies in her identity, the memories she couldn't recall, the situation turned violent. With a screwdriver held like a weapon, she cornered me. She locked the front door and then my bedroom door. Though we sat on the floor, her gun pointed steadily in my direction. The woman I thought was my mother was unrecognizable, her fervor and desperation peeling away the softness of maternal care, replaced by something dark and dangerous. In that claustrophobic silence, something extraordinary happened. A shadow emerged, elongated, hunched, and dark as night. It reached out, placing a long finger between Eileen's trigger finger and the gun's hammer, stopping her just as she was about to pull the trigger. The shadow was immense and unnatural, powerful beyond explanation. Eileen struggled against this invisible force, but she was overpowered. Then the shadow shattered the stillness with brutal violence, slamming the screwdriver-wielding woman to the floor with enough force to break her nose and front teeth. The sound of breaking bone against tile echoed as the struggle continued behind closed bathroom doors. The neighbors called the police as the chaos escalated. They burst in just in time to witness the horrific scene. Eileen locked in a desperate battle with the shadowy entity that had invaded the house. In a final agonizing moment, Eileen was thrown out of the second-story bathroom window, her body broken and silent. As I was wrapped in a blanket on the lawn, trembling and in shock, the scene replayed endlessly in my mind. The pictures that had once plagued the walls were now perfectly straightened, as if order was restored by some unseen hand. The house, despite its quirks and creaks, had endured. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Eileen's facade was shattered, exposing the truth of her deception, and my biological mother came back into my life to reclaim her role. The house, once a place of terror and uncertainty, gradually became a symbol of survival. It was imperfect and full of memories, both painful and healing, but it was home, and I had finally begun to make peace with it. One morning, I woke to a strange vibration and noticed my cracked and dirty cell phone lying on a nightstand. At first, I thought maybe Eileen was done with her relentless search, and this was a sign of peace. As I stepped into the hallway, I caught sight of Eileen unscrewing an outlet from the wall. Startled, I quickly tried to hide the phone behind my back, but it slipped from my hands and fell to the floor of my room. Eileen's eyes locked onto the phone as she crossed the room, pushing me aside forcefully. She picked up the phone, looking at me with disbelief. "Are you messing with me? Is this a joke?" she demanded. When I denied it, she snarled, "I am your mother. You don't lie to me like this." I reminded her about the dinosaur plushie, Kenny, that she had lied about knowing, and suddenly doubt flooded my mind. Did she even remember who I was? Confronting her, I asked questions about my past, my birthplace, middle name, and memories of shared moments she struggled to answer fully. It was ridiculous. She faltered on even the simplest details, like my favorite drink while sitting in the sun chair on the porch. Her answers clashed with my memories. We both stared silently, the walls closing in as suspicion grew. I wasn't certain she was truly my mother. I tried to leave, but she blocked the front door, locking it behind me. Closed behind, wielding a screwdriver like a weapon, she declared, "You'll wait in the basement while I fix this." Her eyes wild and desperate, she dragged me downstairs, locking the door behind us. The basement held nothing but appliances and dusty boxes, yet it felt more like a prison. Hours ticked by with Eileen's violent outbursts echoing through the house. Power tools smashing, furniture being hurled, screams and shouted questions to an unseen presence. She tore into the walls, searching, begging, demanding to know who or what was haunting us. I buried my fear in dusty boxes, sifting through ordinary cards and bills addressed to her, but eventually discovered a disturbing truth. Among the memorabilia was a birthday card addressed not to Eileen, but to a stranger named Laura, bearing a photo of a woman who looked eerily like the woman claiming to be my mother. It was her. She had stolen Eileen's identity, living in the house, and unraveling before me like a nightmare. Fears hardened within me, my body ready to flee. But when the basement door suddenly swung open, I cautiously ascended to find the house eerily quiet. As I stepped outside, I heard footsteps behind me. Eileen was coming fast. I rushed to the front lawn, wet grass between my toes, shouting for help from the nearest neighbor. A door opened across the street and a gunshot rang out. A warning shot. I dropped, covering my head as the neighbors screamed, and scurried indoors. Eileen grabbed me roughly by the arm, gun still in hand, dragging me back inside. Angry, desperate. "I live here now," she hissed. "You don't get to pick your mom." She locked both the front door and my bedroom door, then sat opposite me, gun casually pointed my way. In the dim light, I saw the fractures in her facade. A stranger now occupying a home meant for love and trust. The tension was suffocating as we sat locked in silent standoff. Two strangers sharing a house shadowed by secrets and lies, fighting over a past neither could claim fully. After the turmoil and the terrifying days under Laura's control, life slowly began to find its balance again. My real mother arrived from Nashville, ready to reclaim her place in my life. Settling into her rhythm was far from seamless, but there was something genuine and grounding about her presence. She would lounge on her familiar sun chair by the porch, listening to the radio just like I remembered from childhood stories. Our weekends included her favorite drink, a simple ritual that brought comfort. Unlike before, the pink dinosaur plushie I cherished did not need a name or a backstory. Its meaning was clear, and it belonged to me. Together, we started weaving new memories in the old house. Memories rooted in truth and acceptance. While the scars of the past lingered, they no longer defined our days. The house, once a restless nest of shadows and secrets, began to feel like home, a place where I could finally breathe and belong. This return to normalcy was not about erasing what happened, but about embracing the imperfections of life and finding peace amid them. It was a chance to reconnect with my identity, my real mother, and a life I wanted to build moving forward. Years later, I found myself returning to that very house, nestled near Crystal River, this time as its owner. Over 2 long and painstaking summers, I carefully restored it, breathing new life into its aging walls. The house had been inexpensive, but the work required was immense. Some might wonder why I chose to go back, to live in a place shadowed by such past trauma. But for me, there was no other place that felt like home. The hardships I'd endured were not the house's fault. That burden belonged to Laura. Now the house belongs to me. A place filled with small creaks and gentle nudges, with long shadows cast by the afternoon sun, echoes of cane toads in the yard, and pictures hanging crookedly on the walls, ones I no longer bother straighten. I've come to appreciate imperfection, understanding that I would much rather live in this flawed, authentic home than in a perfect but empty hell. This is my sanctuary, a house of new beginnings, stitched together with memories and resilience, ready for whatever comes next. The story of the House of Shadows delves deep into the profound effects of trauma and the complex search for identity faced by the protagonist. Through a journey marked by loss, upheaval, and unsettling experiences within a seemingly ordinary home, she confronts the layers of uncertainty surrounding her family and herself. Ultimately, the narrative reveals how shadows, both literal and metaphorical, can shape one's understanding of home, trust, and belonging. It underscores the resilience required to reconcile a fractured past and find a place of imperfect peace amid the lingering mysteries and challenges of life. If this story captivated you, please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share with others who might appreciate the journey. Your support means a lot.